I remember the one and only time I put money into a friend's play, right? I know I put in $5,000 or something, and it was a great cast, great script. We had the venue, the whole deal should have been a surefire hit, right? It was the first year the Blue Jays got into the playoffs. We did about 6% box.
Would you say that, this kind of, proposed universal income might be a good system to go forward? Or what other, funding systems can we look to other than, subscriber, corporate sponsors, government sponsors, patchwork, quilt?
Well, I don't know if there is much. I mean, we get a chunk of money, but I mean, it's not like the support you'd get in, say, Germany, right?
Yeah.
Which is massive support. So, but we're a small, big country, and there's a lot of demands on the revenues that come in, and that makes perfect sense to me. So a guaranteed income, I think, would help everybody. I guess my concern is that no good deed goes unpunished. So I would worry, as I said earlier, about always gaming out negatives as well as positives. So the positives for a universal income would be people would be able to live a bit and, have a place over their head and, have a bit of a life, right? I wonder if a negative would be then producers would turn around and say, well, you're getting universal income. I don't really have to pay you that much for this work. Can you see that happening?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's already happening without universal income.
That's right. Yeah. Like, I'm like, okay. And there's so many people who are keen to be in the arts and to do the art. And then you just turn around and you go, you've got to you've got to invest in your career, but there comes a point you've got to start getting paid. And so I would really worry that all of a sudden theater companies would start taking a universal income as a rationale for why everybody gets paid the lowest possible they can. I mean, let's face it, not everybody was Obsidian and paid 2 levels higher scale, right? Not everybody's like that. In fact, there's hardly anybody else who's like that. And already most theater companies, when you're doing your budget, the one area that you have flex in your budget on the expense side is artist salaries or fees. It's the only thing that you've got, right? If you're going to go get your set built, there's no going and saying, well, I think, how about I give you $10 an hour? No, that is not going to fly. IA is not going to take less money. Your venues, your advertisers, nobody else. So it after a while, making a budget becomes really easy because 80% of your expenses are just locked.
Yep.
And then your big decision is, do you pay artists what you think they should be paid? What usually happens is people say, I want to pay artists that much money, Philip, but, and then the but comes in, and then all their reasons, and then they pay them scale, right? And I just go and say, you don't have enough money. You need to be paying people more money. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that a company the size of Obsidian will partner with larger companies and we will have fights over what actors get paid. And we're the ones who are demanding that the actors and the stage managers get paid more money. I have a stage manager that I've worked with a few times, and she told me, she said, Obsidian is the company out of all the companies she's worked for that have paid her the most money. right?
Wow.
So you look at what a stage manager, I mean, people don't kind of understand this. So you pay a stage manager, let's say $1,000 a week, right? And you take away all the equity stuff, right? Dues, insurance, blah, 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 all of that stuff. So all of that comes out of their salary. And then because they're considered an employee, you have to take out taxes, EI, CPP, right? So that $1,000 a week, and I'd be writing a check to somebody. I'd be like, "What? Why am I writing this check for $554?"
Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
the rest of it is gone. The rest of it's gone. That's brutal. It's brutal, the levels that people are paid. And we live in a business where people will do anything to try to get a break or be seen or live up to their dreams. And I have to say that I despair of how they are used. And that all comes into the massive thing that we're talking about, which is overall money. I would like to think that if producers had more money, that they would give it to artists, but I don't think that's what will actually happen. I think they get more money. And I always say that about year 7, let's say you and a couple of your buddies from theater school form a company, and you start doing shows and it's getting well received, and you've got this really, edgy kind of thing.
Yeah.
At around year 7, something changes in your company. You won't even be aware of it, but it will be a profound change. And the difference will be is that you start off taking risk, doing edgy theater for your art. At around year 7, survival of the company now becomes paramount. And you don't even realize it until you look at some of the decisions you're making and you go, oh, no. If we spend that much money in this project, we've got the office now.
Yeah.
Right. And it happens. And that's it's not like I know this and avoided it. It's like I know this because I know this. And I talked about how we did a $250,000 project with $180K, and there's not a hope in hell that I would have taken that risk at Obsidian. The government would have had my money, everybody, my accountant, my board, everybody would be like, get the bum out of here.
Yeah.
Because it's the survival of the company starts to take over.
So what would you say is the purpose of a theater? Is it to serve the community it's in, the culture that it's in, or is it to survive?
Well, I think if it sticks around long enough, it's to survive, right? There was these guys that came in. They were really interesting artists, and they were young, and they had this company, and it was all about people under 30, and it was hoo-to-do, and they were doing some really interesting stuff, and then they disappeared. I don't know what happened to them, but I was talking to them one day, and I said, so this is a really interesting mandate that you have. I said, I just have to ask you something. I said, you're like, what, 22, 23 now? And they said, yeah. I said, so you've set this up so this company has to be run by people under 30. And they said, yeah, because that's, And I said, so after you've devoted 7 years of your life building this company, it being a part of you artistically and your heart, when you turn 30, are you walking away? And they'd never thought of that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it seemed like such a far ways away, but it's not. So I think that's part of the trap, right? Like you get caught up in this, you get caught up by your legacy, and you get caught up by your history, and then you've got to live up to that, and that does not always make for the best decisions. I think artists should go out there and just, I think think they should be kind of selfish, man. I think you should do the art you want to do. I get very frustrated when I hear people talking about, and it's all safe art. It's all, we're going to make sure nobody's offended. I'm like, when Stravinsky's Rite of Spring premiered in Paris, people dug up cobblestones out of the street and rioted and threw them. Okay? I wish I had that as part of my legacy. That people got so mad that they threw bricks through the windows. I wish I could have done that. But we don't do that, right? We're like, oh no, don't want to offend anybody. I say you let your art drive you, whatever that is, however it manifests, you know, and do what you believe in doing. Because if artists aren't brave, then the work isn't brave, and then why are we bothering to do it, right? And then it doesn't matter how much money you get from the government, because it's all kind of pre-pasteurized, pre-digested pablum, and then that sounds like fun.
When you talk about all the young artists, you know, the ones who are really gung-ho and the ones who like haven't given up on doing their art, you know, what is a thing that they need to, or what are the things they need to arm themselves, you know, to look at doing the art and, you know, and surviving, or not focusing on surviving?
Well, I mean, it's a really different world now. But I would say this is where there's been an epic failure on both the school system and the artist training system. Finances, financial management, budgeting, the whole fiscal thing is so, it's sloughed off in like a couple of classes, if it's even that. And so you end up with people coming out without any kind of actual knowledge. And that is, I happen to love finances, right? So that to me sounds like, wow, golden. And I know lots of people hate it and they don't want to do it and stuff. And that's fine. You know, parallel parking a car, not a lot of people love that either. And I don't like getting up every day and washing the darn dishes, you know, but stuff's got to get done. And the fact that everybody, since people are coming out of theater schools and a huge number of them are starting companies right away, I wonder why is it that it's then, once they're out of theater school, that they're now striving to get the financial acumen to do what they want to do. When, I mean, people don't even know how to use Excel. If you can't use an Excel spreadsheet, like, where are you in the world of producing? And so there's a huge there's a huge mixed message that goes on. So theater schools talk about generating and creating your own work, and people will spend like 3 years working on their devised project, and not one single bit of useful information about how to take that devised project and get the money to get it up on a stage in another city. I don't know. It's a little bit like, I don't know what, only using a simulator to learn how to drive or fly a plane. And then you come out and you say, yeah, man, I'm getting a job on a 747. Yeah, there's an issue there.
Yeah.
and so there's a willful lack of knowledge, both on the part of the students and from the training institutions, to really make this a course. I know when I was directing at one of the theater schools, the actors they were doing a kind of a producing class, and so I got to talking to them about it one day, and I said, so what have you budgeted for your box office? They said, 50%. I said, okay. and how much money is have you got for publicity? And they go, oh, $1,500. And I said, and where are you doing your play? And they say, oh, Toronto. I said, no, you're not. $1,500 buys you Facebook ads. And, you know, a lot of people say they show up, but they ain't going to show up. Number one. Number two, nobody in their right mind without a subscriber base that's already built in will be budgeting at 50%. So if you can't even cut through the clutter of every other, I mean, you know, like I said, when are you going to do your play? They said, oh, June. I said, in Fringe and Luminato? How's that going to work? And nobody teaches that. Nobody says, you know what you need to do? You need to look at what else is going on in your city when you're looking to produce. I remember the one and only time I put money into a friend's play, right? They had, I know I put in $5,000 or something, and it was a great cast, great script. We had the venue, the whole deal should have been a surefire hit, right? It was the first year the Blue Jays got into the playoffs. We did about 6% box.
Whoa.
When I was starting up my pen show that I do every year, the first thing I did was check what was going on in the city of Toronto. When were the marathons? Were there parades? Were there special events? Blah, blah, blah. And ended up basically on the last weekend of October or the first weekend in November, one of those two slots, because by then all the marathons, they weren't closing down the DVP, and it turned out to be that was the perfect weekend to hold an event where you were relying on people traveling by transit to get to you. And you need to do that, but you need to know to do that kind of work, right? But if you just think, yep, we're going to do it, we're going to throw it up at a studio out at, I don't know, Donlands or whatever, nobody knows. Nobody knows. I mean, the only thing we haven't talked about is people come out and they do this, and the first place they go to is the bank of mom and dad and the bank of friends. And that's great. And that's great. But it only is going to last for so long. One, maybe two productions, and then everybody's tapped out. Nobody wants to go to your $25 a night bar party, of which we can't do anyway. Right? This all sounds really bleak, but the idea for me is you're going to come out and small, you know, for your first time, it's going to be projects. So scrutinize your project for its artistic merit and its appeal. By doing a really clear, honest budget, by not trying to bullshit and scam, by having a project that is truly different and not just a vanity piece. There's a difference between a vanity piece and something that you believe in that you know you're going to push. All of those things can help you cut through the amazing amount of dreck at the project level, because there's hundreds. You should get on a jury, dude, because then you will understand what it was like for me the time I went on vacation to France and the Canada Council gave me an iPad of which had like 180 applications. And there's pictures of me sitting in the French countryside, like drinking and scrolling through another freaking application. But you learn a lot. And you can just see, because it's naivete that undercuts most of the applications, sort of like pie in the sky stuff. The whole idea of yes, our expenses, let's say our expenses are $12,000 and we've managed to raise $8,000 and we're going to get $4,000 in box office to cover off the 8,000 to cover off the shortfall. That's the kind of thinking that bankrupts theaters. You can't be counting on box office against expenses. It's hard. I would not say I've been successful at doing it all the time, but it's better when you actually have covered off your expenses by revenues, excluding box office. Because then all the box office is payment for your fee that you didn't take because you were doing all the work, or money for your next project. So that's why I budget at 30%. Because if I budget at 30% and then I keep, I know the rest of my revenue, then I'm already going to build my expenses to match my revenue, right? So if you have a naivete budget where you got all this revenue, your expenses will actually grow to match that, and you will spend it.
Yeah.
And then when the shortfall comes in, then you're on the hook. But if you keep your revenue appropriate, your expenses will stay appropriate. If you end up with a hit where your box office goes gangbusters, that's all gravy.
Do you have any resources that you would recommend to people who just want to learn more about whether it's thinking financially or about navigating a system that seems increasingly complex?
You know, when I kind of talk like I knew all this stuff. But y'all don't understand. I didn't know. And it was because of Nancy Webster and Naomi Campbell that, I mean, those were my go-to people. Every once in a while, I'd make a desperate 411 to Craig Morash at YPT because I didn't know anything. And literally it's about that kind of mentorship. People don't want to ask for help, and they would rather reinvent the wheel, which makes no sense to me. It makes no sense to me. Why are you reinventing the wheel? If you want to reinvent a new form of energy production to push the wheel, I'm all for that, but not the wheel itself. So I would say ask people. Most people, as they're self-producing, don't put in their fee. Right? And they don't put it in because they go, well, there's no money to pay me anyway, so I'll just do it. But what they've done, though, is they have falsified what it costs to do the show. Because if you put in that $3,000 worth of producing fee, and then you didn't make it on your revenue side, you now know that that's where your shortfall was. You may take it out of your budget later, so when you report back to the councils, it all balances off. But if you don't put that fee in, you will not be reminded that you have to be paid. But people don't want to do that. They want to put all the money into the production, and that I know all that good stuff. But the fact of the matter is at the end of the day, you're out of pocket. So you have to be honest about that, and you have to be recompensed in a way. I mean, I run my pen show for there's no profit. We don't charge, we just make enough to cover expenses and things. But you know what I do? After every single show, I take my partner and myself, because they've had to live with me while I've been doing this thing, and we go out and we have a kick-ass top-of-the-line meal. And if I drop $300-400 on this meal for the two of us, that's my payment.
Yeah.
All the work. because thoughts and prayers are nice, but a really good meal is better.
Oh yeah.
So you have to be really honest as a new producer. And you know me, if people have questions, issues, want to sit, kick things over, me and my porch, yo.
And so I remember a patron at Canadian Stage, a longtime patron, I would imagine, saying, I think these young people need a wake-up call. They need a wake-up call. They're focusing on the wrong things. And it was a high school student that stood up, literally stood up at that point and said, all people are allowed to dream.